Thank you, Madam Secretary. Thank you for your testimony, and also thank you, as others have said, for your service. Traveling over 1 million miles and more than 100 countries, I think those of us who haven't done it cannot appreciate how difficult that is, and the commitment that you've had to it over the years, and I thank you. With regard to the appearance of Dr. Rice on the morning shows, you mentioned that you did not select her. Were you consulted in that decision?
No. No, but it would not be in any way unusual for Ambassador Rice to represent the administration on a foreign relations issue.
Right. And I don't think it was either. But afterwards, after she testified, it was clear that what she testified to was at variance with a lot of communications from the State Department, and a lot of the information that had been gathered and things that had been said by yourself and others at the State Department. Can you just enlighten us a bit as to discussions that went on at the State Department after that testimony? Was there, I mean, these are professionals that you oversee who do a lot of hard work to give analysis in this kind of assessment. What she said was clearly at variance with a lot of the research and analysis that had gone on about the nature of these attacks. Can you just enlighten us as to discussion? What discussions were had at the State Department after this testimony?
Well, I don't think I cannot speak to any conversation I specifically had because the conversations were ongoing before and after Ambassador Rice's appearance on the Sunday talk shows. And we did not conclude, finally, that there were no protests at all until days after the attack. So maybe it was an abundance of caution. Maybe it was trying to make sure we didn't step on anybody's toes while we were gathering information. Maybe it was because the IC was still looking at all of their sources and having different threads coming in. But, you know, as the ARB said, even today, the motivations, the actions before they went onto the compound, all of that is still not nailed down. So I think we were trying very hard to provide information. Maybe one of the lessons learned here is, you know, just withhold. Don't say what you don't know for sure until it's finally decided. But that's not part of who we are as Americans and as public officials. We get out there, we say, here's what we think happened, it's subject to change. And so I think we all wish that nobody had ever in any way raised doubts, but certainly Ambassador Rice and all the other administration officials were speaking off of what had been determined were the most acceptable talking points.
Well, I think we know now that talking points, we don't exactly know where they were changed or how they were changed, but they were changed or altered. And I think that we can all concede that we were not given a clear picture of what went on.
Well, but Senator, and you know, we didn't have a clear picture. I wish I could sit here today and tell you that within days, within a week, by September 20th, when we came up here, we had a clear picture. We did not have a clear picture. And that, you know, if you wish to fault the administration, it is that we didn't have a clear picture, and we probably didn't do as clear a job explaining that we did not have a clear picture until days later, creating what I think are legitimate questions. You know, I understand, I've been on the other side of the table. I understand trying to figure out what was going on and why were we told this, that, and the other. But I can only assure you that as the information came to light and as people thought it was reliable, we shared it, but that took some time.
Right. Thank you. In the remaining seconds left, you mentioned that many of the recommendations have now been put in place. There are protocols in place to make sure that if security is not adequate, that we move our diplomats and others to places where they're more secure or whatever. But let me just say, there were protocols in place before this. There were tripwires that we tripped, and the actions that were outlined to be taken were not taken. How can we be assured here that the new protocols that are in place with these new recommendations being implemented will be followed or adhered to, because they clearly weren't before.
Well, Senator, I want to make clear that no one in the State Department, the intelligence community, any other agency ever recommended that we close Benghazi. We were clear-eyed about the threats and the dangers as they were developing in eastern Libya and in Benghazi. But there was no decision made and nothing that prompted such a decision. Now, sitting here today, we have probably at least 20 other posts that are under a serious threat environment as I speak to you. We are working with the other agencies in our government, some of whom are co-located with us, others of whom are nearby. We're constantly assessing. And sometimes we get it wrong, but it's rare that we get it wrong. This was one of those terrible, tragic times when, you know, there was an assessment shared by the ambassador, shared by others, that turned out not to take into account the militants attacking that night. So I can tell you there are, as you say, tripwires, but what we're going to try to do is elevate the discussion and the decision-making so that there's not any doubt that everybody's on the same page, that we're not missing information, we're not husbanding resources and thereby making less than optimal decisions. That's what we're going to try to institutionalize going forward.
Thank you.
Senator Coons.